If you've been following my avatar tips you probably haven't heard of series, you'll notice that I haven't posted one in a while. That's because I've been posting them over on TikTok instead. So with that, here's all of the 2024 avatar tips TikToks I've posted. Sometimes avatar hair will spin like crazy when you move with the joystick. It's because the immobile type needs to be set to world experimental. The higher you have the slider up, the less it's affected by the world. So if you have it all the way up, when you move with the joystick, the hair won't move at all. I set it at about 0.5 and the hair moves much more smoothly. Sometimes blend shapes get corrupted even though it doesn't seem like you did anything wrong. It might look fine in Blender, but then when you go to Unity, the blend shape isn't doing what you told it to do. It starts moving other parts of the mesh you didn't tell it to move. And oftentimes your other blend shapes will be affected as well. You'll know it's corrupted because if you go into Blender and make a new key, without even modifying that key at all, if you set the value to 1, you'll notice parts of it are affected. After dealing with this problem that I don't even know how it happens in the first place for a full year, I finally figured out how to fix it. You want to go into Blender and make a new key. Set the value to 1, hit the drop down arrow, and apply select shape key to basis. Then click on the reverted key, set the value to 1, and apply selected shape key to basis again. If you were to make a new key, you'll notice it doesn't have a mind of its own anymore. And now your blend shapes work as originally intended. So you've got your avatar all done, and you notice the mouth is stuck open. That's because the head you went with has a jawbone, and the humanoid rig keeps the jawbone in. You need to go into the humanoid rig and delete the jawbone, and problem solved. Now your avatar's mouth isn't stuck open. Just a quick tip for you guys this time. Merry Christmas and have a good New Year. So you messed up and now your model is stuck in this weird pose. It's coined as the motorcycle pose, and it happens because you edit animations by putting the controller directly on the avatar rather than making a duplicate of your model. That's a bad practice because it causes that pose, but luckily it doesn't affect the model in game, it just makes it harder to work with in Unity. Now there's a lot of ways you can fix this. I'm personally going to be using GoGoLoco. I'm looking for the GoGoLoco T-Pose controller. If I put that in the controller slot in the avatar descriptor and I go into play mode, the model goes into a T-pose. Now I'm going to drag the model into the assets folder. This will create a prefab. Now, outside of play mode, if I drag the prefab into the scene again, the model is now stuck in that T-pose from the controller. I don't need the old version anymore, and I can delete the controller from the avatar descriptor, and now the model's in a T-pose permanently. Mika, Moonlight, tail web settings. Okay, disclaimer, these are not actually her settings. I did ask her directly if she would be willing to share them, but she declined, saying she does not share them, and even if she did, they would not work for other tails because they are very specific to her tail. With that said, now I'm going to show you a Physbone setting I came up with that works with every tail I tested. I spent weeks trying to get the Phys setting correct, and it wasn't until my friend Rose said that I should try an actual whip for the base settings, and I heavily modified the settings from there to work with the tail. When you copy these settings, it's important to note the X's on the right side. We're using curves, so only the base part of the tail moves fast, then the rest of the tail moves slow, for example. If these settings are confusing to you, I do have the preset saved in the Physbone settings section of my Discord server. Make sure you change the collision radius to match your tail, as that is heavily dependent on the mesh you're using, and I also recommend at least using hip and leg colliders, so be sure to add those in too. Now we did run into one tail that did not whip as much as the others. I'm not really sure why, maybe it was too short, who knows. Just keep that in mind when you try the setting. The tails I used for this that worked really well were Tilly's Edgy Kitty set, Cootier Kitten's Fluffy Tail, and Hollow EXE's Cat set. If you need any help applying these settings, feel free to ask for assistance in the help section setting of my server. I hope to see this spread around because I love the tail whip effect and more people should be using it. When you sit, your hands are in the air and your viewpoint is above the avatar. Why sit like that when you can sit like this? There are apparently other ways to fix this, but this is how you fix it in Unity on a per avatar basis. You want to create a new animator controller and name it something like sit new, sit empty, whatever. All you're gonna do is double click that controller, create a state, and click empty. You're not even gonna put an animation in it. Scroll down in the inspector and under the special setting, you're going to click on default sitting. Then you just drag the new controller you created in that spot. This is really only useful for full body users, so you don't get locked into that seated position and you can sit however you want. This is especially useful in some worlds, such as the new driving worlds. I was able to drive the car from the roof. If making the controller didn't make sense to you, I do have a spot in my Discord where you can download the controller. Make sure your right default settings are synced up correctly as well. Ever wonder how people have that fancy galaxy effect on their avatar? This inspo came from Baby Doll Obscurity, so go check them out. Their models are gorgeous. You can add it as a decal, detail, or emission, but here's a clip showing how to add it as a decal. The most important part is setting the UV to Panosphere. If you don't see anything happen, you need to check tiled as well. It also doesn't have to be a galaxy effect. You could technically do this with any image. For the hell of it, I'm going to show you guys some options that you could do on my Halloween costume this year. It needs to be at least a 4K image if possible, or at least as high res an image you can go. I did notice that some images on some meshes create a weird effect with the tiling. The lower res, the blurrier the image is going to be. I tried to mess around with this scaling for smaller images and it made the tiling look even worse. So you need to keep that in mind when you do this. I hope to see people use this effect more because I love it so much. Sometimes when you put your avatar in Unity, you'll find the face looks like this. It gets progressively worse as you apply more blend shapes, which can make adding expressions difficult since you can't see what it would truly look like. Shouts out to my Discord server. You can thank this awesome person for sharing this info. It is worth mentioning though that this is only a Unity bug. You can leave it as is and it doesn't actually affect your avatar in game, but I still thought it was worth sharing. Do you ever find yourself having to delete large portions of your parameter list? The process can take forever because you find yourself only being able to click one parameter at a time to delete it. VR Lab's Avatar 3.0 Manager actually has a system in place that allows you to manually delete parameters. It is still a one-button process, but you can press it much faster. Instead of having to click the parameter, scroll up, and hit delete, you just hit the X to delete the parameter. Hope this saves you some time. If you've ever been disappointed by Blender's built-in data transfer, you're in the right place. Tupish, the genius asset finder, got me on this Blender add-on called Robust Weight Transfer, which is intended to replace the default data transfer built into Blender, and it does. The default data transfer creates harsh lines and doesn't take even slightly loose clothing into account. Now after using this add-on, I did have to go in and smooth this portion of the sleeve out. This side, however, I left completely untouched. It's still not perfect and you do still have to create blend shapes for your body, but it will still save you so much time compared to what the default data transfer can do. You can see here the robust weight transfer automatically fixed that weird jagged edging. But it did still create a hole whenever your arms go down, but that's a much easier fix to make. All I'm doing here is removing the weight from the arm and adding it to the chest instead, rather than smoothing out that entire jagged edge from before. So to reiterate, it's not perfect, but it is still so much better than the default data transfer. It's free, so seriously go download it because it will save you so much time. If you're interested in the specifics of this add-on and want to go download it yourself, go check out Tupish's TikTok, where we show off the add-on. Have you ever wondered what causes the intense shadow in some worlds that make your avatar look really good? This is called AO, or ambient occlusion. This isn't really an avatar tip, but it's a great setting for taking high quality pictures or videos of your avatar. Some worlds have a toggle system where you have to turn on the AO, while some worlds may have it on by default with no option to turn it off. For the world creating enthusiasts who are interested, it's made using a post-processing volume. There's an option for add effect for ambient occlusion. I'm showing off a few of the worlds that I know of with a custom creation that I recently made for an order. However, the more the merrier. If anyone knows of any other worlds that are heavy on the AO, please drop them in the comments. I'd love to go favorite them and I'm sure everyone else would appreciate it too. So what do you think? Are you a fan of AO? How do you get that classic metal shine that large Eboys usually have? I'm tired of feeling like everyone's gatekeeping these really great settings, so I went ahead and spent hours finding out exactly what causes this. I went through all of the usual metal shader settings and I couldn't find anything until I came across Poyomi 7.2's clear coat. More specifically, enable specular needs to be checked on. The second thing you need is a metal matte cap. I personally use these ones I found on Gumroad, but you can get them just about anywhere for free. You want to duplicate the matte cap and turn the second one into a cube map. The only two sections that actually matter are clear coat and matte cap, though you can use other things instead of matte cap, but this is the easiest solution. I personally found the shine to be a little too blinding, so you can turn the clear coat slider itself down until it suits your needs. Enjoy living out your giant Eboy dreams. So you don't like the metal setting that I gave you. That's okay, it's not for everyone. That intense sparkle effect is actually unintentional. It can be extremely unoptimized for most people. So let me show you my metal shader setting that doesn't have the shiny effect. We'll use this custom I made for Reaper's Delight for example since it has a lot of metal on it. So you really only need 2 or so settings to get that good metal effect, but I personally like to throw everything on there, including reflections in specular, cube map, clear coat, even doubling up on 2 different matte caps. But the most important thing here for that fake shine is glitter. You want to turn the max brightness all the way up. I do want to emphasize there's no wrong way of making shaders. At the end of the day, if it's how you like it, that's all that matters. The biggest thing I've learned from making over 100 avatar commissions now is how unique an avatar can look just from the shaders alone. You could put 2 avatars that are using the same assets next to each other, and they could look completely different because one just has the texture, while the other one has things like rim lighting, specular reflections, glitter, matte caps, emissions, outlines, and so much more. My more recent unique shader effects that I've added to customs have been a hair emission effect that uses a panning emission mask and adding a 4K skin normal tiled to imitate real skin. I did cover the skin in a previous TikTok, so if you're curious about that, go check that out. I love it so much. It's such a nice effect. I do get some commissions where they don't want these effects, which is okay. It's just a bummer because it's the funnest part of making a custom to me. If there's any other special effects you guys are curious how to do, just let me know. If you like a touch of realism to your avatars, you might be interested in learning you can add a realistic skin normal. I got this one for free from 3D Textures. I'll go ahead and put the link on the screen so you can grab that one too. You want to drag it into your normal map and set the tile to, I'll choose like a 30 by 30, but you can change it depending on what looks better for you. You might notice up front that it doesn't really change if you don't have any shader effects. I have a few simple things that I like to do, like rim lighting, specular reflections, glitter, and sometimes a matte cap. I'm going to go ahead and show all of those settings here. The rim lighting and the specular reflections are doing a lot of the heavy lifting in getting the normal to show up. I feel like the glitter can dilute the normal, but I personally just really like that extra shine that it gives. I like my glitter pretty small, but some creators prefer large glitter. And the glitter along with everything else are really opinion based on how you want to make the settings. The matte cap is mainly just to make the skin look less flat. I personally don't use the base panda texture, I use one made by Yin Yang. This texture makes me feel like I don't need a matte cap because the colors are already so vibrant. Here is the before and after, the before being just the skin texture itself and the after being all of the shader effects as well as the normal map. I will definitely be using this from now on. There's one major disadvantage that kit bashed avatars will have over any other avatars. When you take a body from one creator and a head from another, it's generally going to have a pretty obvious seam. This free texture fix can be found online and is a game changer. You just drag it on the decal and then you choose your skin color to make it match the head. For a more optimized version, you could take it into Photoshop, but if you're not good with that, this is perfectly fine. As of this TikTok, it's only for panda base. That said, it's a pretty simple concept and you should be able to just create one yourself for whatever base you're using. So you mostly go to worlds that don't have the AO option, but you still want that same effect. You can actually directly bake AO into your mesh. Your mesh can go from this to this. It does require having Substance Painter so you can bake the AO in. Once you've exported the AO texture you just baked, you import it into Unity and set it as a multiplied decal. If you have it on full intensity, it does show every imperfection in your mesh. I personally only have it at about 30%, so it's more subtle. I caught wind of this from this avatar, and with it found this full tutorial by Velvet on YouTube. And that is all of the TikToks about avatar tips that I've posted over the course of 2024. Since these tips are generally focused on being quick and to the point, I've decided to keep this series permanently on TikTok and will only post compilations at the end of the year. Instead, my YouTube will now be focused on longer form tutorials, such as a video I recently uploaded on how to shape clothing. If there's a specific kind of guide you want to see, let me know in the comments and I might make a video about it.